10 seconds remaining. 10 seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally time. The first game was ours for SEA, and now the last game of this particular part of the Genting qualifiers is ours as well. The grand finals for the North American region, Complexity versus Immortals. My name is DragonJob. I'm joined by Skim. Skim, how are you doing, man?
Super hyped for this. Super hyped for this. Complexity versus Immortals should be a good one. Both teams incredibly strong. We've seen both teams already clash before in previous qualifiers as well.
Yeah.
Complexity thus far, the more successful team, of course, going to several LAN events, already earning qualifier points. So for Immortals, especially after Complexity already got an invite today to a major, for Immortals, this is going to be a really important one, right?
Oh,
they
yes.
want to make sure they get themselves on the map. I mean, yeah, they have also already been to a LAN event, to PGL, but of course, a team like Immortals, a team like the Koreans, they want more, and, well, this is the first step to more.
Absolutely. I mean, Complexity, though, they're still coming in as the favorites here, especially if you look at these last results. I mean, they won 3-0 in Captain's Draft. Not necessarily representative because it's Captain's Draft, right? So it's a bit of a different story, but even in the Summit 8 North America qualifiers, they also played a best of 5. Complexity won 3-1. So Immortals, they're definitely up against it here, especially also considering how they looked in a previous series, right? We were casting them yesterday, both of these teams, actually. Immortals won 2-1 against VGJ Storm. But the game that they lost, they looked really shaky. Like, they were a completely different team. Whereas Complexity, well, they dispatched Leviathan with a really quick 2-0 in a dominating fashion. Now, you can argue the merits of comparing VGJ Storm to Leviathan in terms of opponent strength, but still, just looking at how they played, Complexity, if they bring the same A-game here to this best of 3, oh, best of 5 even, then they should really take it away here. But again, stranger things have happened. Immortals, they have a lot to play for. They have a lot to gain.
For sure. No, but I really like your I really like your assessment. I do think this has pretty much been the Immortals story thus far, rather the Koreans reuniting. Yeah, they've looked promising, but at the same time they've also looked very inconsistent. We haven't really seen them be that consistent force in NA. Exactly, like I mentioned earlier, they've only made it to one LAN event or one minor, effectively. Obviously, a team like Immortals, the big brand, and of course also these players that have achieved so much, right? Top 6 at TI. All right, they want more than this, and Complexity, a bit of a arch nemesis in that way, and Complexity has taken a lot of these qualifiers away, not only from them but also from other NA teams, of course, and beating them would definitely, for the first time in the finals, would definitely be an important task.
10 seconds remaining.
Alright, into the draft we go. Witch Doctor and Slaughter for Complexity. So already a bit of a different strat than what we're used to seeing perhaps in general here in 707 so far. Bit of a minus armor. Like it's not the most common first 1-2 punch at the very least. So together with the Witch Doctor you already have some synergy there. You have that push sustain from the Voodoo Restoration eventually, but more importantly, that early game power that the Witch Doctor actually brings to you. Not necessarily because of the cast, because that's kind of unreliable, really bad level 1 as well. But more importantly, the Maledict. If you have any sort of extra burst damage, or even just good right-click damage coming in after that, or extra control from the Slaughter, you can secure early kills with that you otherwise wouldn't be able to.
For sure. Yeah, the Slaughter is not necessarily one of the most usual picks early on, but at the same time, if we look at the bans, the first 6, right, we've seen 6 supports being taken out.
Yeah.
You could argue, alright, Sand King being taken out is also a bit of an offlane pick, and definitely Complexity in pretty much 99% of the cases they have lengthy Sand King in the offlane, but still, this goes to show that both teams really want to make sure that these teams don't feel too comfortable, right? If you look at all these heroes being banned out, those are very targeted bans right now, making sure that teams aren't in their own comfort zone. But at the same time, these are experienced teams. They still have a lot of these heroes left over, especially when I'm looking towards Complexity. There's heroes like the Beastmaster. I was literally just about to say, like the Beastmaster, Moose Beastmaster is, quite frankly, a monster. I purposely didn't say beast there, because it just does so well in the lane, and of course it creates a lot of space, pushes very early on, and right now Complexity have a lot of physical damage available to them. Right, they have the minus armor, but then of course they also have the attack speed coming out from the Beastmaster.
Yeah.
And Immortals going into this draft, they will have to be careful to deal with these pushes. They pick up the Elder Titan, which is quite a decent counter push hero with the Spirit and the Stomp, of course, and then they also do have the Tiny Ideally, you still have some sort of like projectile that you can throw out.
10
Some hero that
seconds
just has like a
remaining.
spammable spell
Radiant
against this kind of stuff.
team
Or at the very least, being able to initiate onto the Beastmaster when they do push. And complexity, going all in on both physical damage, but also push with the Lone Druid here.
Absolutely. I mean, all they need is Lycan thrown in for good measure. I would turn it a little bit too much on the melee heavy side, probably, considering that there is this
10
other Titan,
seconds
right? I mean,
remaining.
it's very good area denial hero, if nothing else.
5 seconds
And if you then combo that up with some sort of extra bit of control to make sure that these spells actually land, like that you set up the Stomp into the Earth Splitter, then all of a sudden that turns into a really huge damage dealer as well, especially if he gets in the middle of that fight, getting making good use of that natural order. And Abaddon doesn't really provide that control factor, but he's one of these heroes that you can send out in the front line at the very least, right? You can just have him as a shield between your team and the enemy team, and if he's the one being initiated on by the Beastmaster, for example, or the Slaughter, even with the Blink, he's just going to pop his ultimate, right? And you have that extra time to decide, alright, do we want to engage into this? Or do we want to counter-initiate, or do we just want to run away and dodge that out?
And of course, Aphotic Shield is one of the better spells to throw out against the Beastmaster Roar. So in that regard, it is a solid pickup, but I do fear for Immortals' laning stage at this moment, because Abaddon, or Abaddon rather, of course, doesn't necessarily... Depending on how the laning stage goes, it really could go either way. You know, knowing complexity, they will definitely switch lanes around depending on what they need. But if it's, for example, up against the Lone Druid in a 1v1, not necessarily that good of a matchup.
Yep. Well, we'll see. They certainly need another hero that kind of ties it all together, right? I mean, for Immortals, they're still looking for a mid. They don't quite have the very last pick in this draft,
10
so
seconds remaining.
Complexity will have a chance to counter-pick that. But
5 seconds
I
remaining.
don't know, what hero would you pick up here? I mean, if the puck wasn't banned, I would say that, but what's left here?
It's a very good question. I'm also thinking of something like the puck, something that needs to sort of, not necessarily dictate the pace in the mid-game, but has a little bit of deep push, but also can sort of carry together with the Tiny. I'm not surprised they banned the Razor, because I think Razor could have worked for them. And instead they're going for the Luna, so the Tiny mid. Alright, I wouldn't be surprised if they now pick the Sniper for complexity. Limb Sniper is really strong here, I believe.
Yeah.
They don't have any good initiation against the Sniper, aside from Blink Toss, or like Blink Avalanche.
Remaining.
But right now, you know, with a physical armor or with a physical
5
damage
seconds
coming out from
remaining.
complexity, sort of like strategy, you have 2 frontliners, or rather 3 frontliners, with the Lone Druid, Beastmaster, and the Slaughter. I believe there's a lot of good ways of creating space and sort of, you know, supporting the Tiny and make the Sniper, and making sure that he just gets to hit people as much as he wants to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta wonder, like, even if this is some sort of mid-Luna, which is not common by any means, probably less common than a Tiny, but even then, someone like a Sniper would just do just as well, right? But, well, complexity, they still have a bit of time left to figure out what exactly they want to do, and worst comes to worst, they can also just go back to something like a Dragon Knight and add even more push in lineup, even more tankiness, but then again, another melee hero might not be ideal. You already have these frontliners, so something like Sniper, OD, anything along those lines would be super helpful to just complement that and provide that extra bit of physical damage that, and just I'm trying to think of a way to put it, but you just have more options, you know, and more problems to throw at them of different types. And the Viper, yeah, kind of fits the bill, right? He can be a frontliner, but he can also just sit behind the Slaughter and just provide an expert of slow and good amount of damage too. And the Break could also be actually pretty damn useful up against the Elder Titan Aura.
I like it here because it kites around the Abaddon and the Tiny pretty nicely, even the Luna to a degree.
Abaddon, by the way. If they pick up any sort of silence, or just level 25 Viper with the silence, you can just throw out the Nether Toxin, and Abaddon can't use his ultimate, because the Break disables the passive automatic activation, and the silence would then prevent him from casting it himself. So that's an interesting thing that they might want to look out for, actually.
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if Complexity did think of this possibility when they picked up the Viper as well. But again, there's a lot of value in the Viper pick here. I would have preferred something else, just something as a bit more punchy and potentially that can join the team fights early on while the Lone Druid is going to form up the Radiance. Sniper might have been maybe a little bit too greedy, but something along the lines of TA also could have worked. TA also has the nice fallback of being able to farm Ancients and just farming stacks in general. Viper, when he falls behind, he rarely falls behind because usually he dominates his lane, but when he does fall behind, he tends to not really catch up that quickly, just because, again, he can't really farm stacks as efficiently as other heroes. And also, it is worth noting that it is coL, Tiny, battle. Most likely mid. I'm not sure who actually said it, but as long as you give coL a melee hero to just hit people with, he will do just fine, and he does have a melee hero here. Tiny, of course, with the extended range from Tree Grab, not really much of a melee hero anymore, can actually harass quite nicely. So trades fairly well against most ranged heroes, of course, though this is still a Viper, so not sure if he has a good time here. But in general, coL, when you give him these kind of heroes, he can be a scary monster, and I wouldn't be surprised if you know, he puts the team on the back in the mid game.
Yeah, he's also gonna get some help from the Bane, more than likely here in mid. Like you can even see this early point into and people perhaps just make it life very hard for the Viper indeed. Like don't have the craziest amount of like damage. Put a field on top of that, you're not last hitting anything. And that might just be enough to put you over the edge. Like, we've seen it a couple of times throughout these qualifiers, but we'll see whether Immortals also subscribe to that particular train of thought.
coL here with the early ward and with the early movements, making sure, and even with the bear scouting out, they will need to know and they want to know what kind of lineup or what kind of lane matchup and what is it setting up. And a lot of teams do this. A lot of teams do this early on when they want to, but then when they need that one specific matchup. And right now, it looks like... I don't really think they scouted on anything, so it seems as if they're just banking or just guessing at this point and just having the Lone Druid bottom here and then putting the Beastmaster top. Well, now they see the Abaddon anyway, so now they know, and it looks like Mu is indeed avoiding this lane as he is walking down to the bottom lane.
You know, what's the best matchup here up against Luna? Do you just want the Lone Druid or just the Beastmaster?
Oh, the Beastmaster, most likely. And against the Abaddon, you definitely... It's not so much against the Luna as much as it is against the Abaddon, really. Because the Abaddon is the one hero that you want to be able to, not necessarily shut down, but you just don't want to give him a good lane. And you can actually win the lane, definitely. So just putting the Lone Druid up against that. Yeah, there we go. Having the Lone Druid rotate top as well.
Febby just walking up with the Spirit, extra damage, especially with two heroes here, just buffing that up even more than usual. Just straight up walking up onto Lim with the extra tree toss, like, down to like 200 health points. It's a bit annoying to say the least, so hey. It's not just the Bane, it's also the Elder Titan who can, in the first couple of minutes, lose crazy amount of help, but... Well, Duo at the same time taking over bottom for a moment here until MP can come back. coL did the same thing up top here until the rotation came through from Chessie. It's getting that extra bit of experience and at least not letting it go to waste. And now we see these lanes kind of stabilized already. coL also dropping super low with Witch Doctor here, landing that Maledict and the Cask. Gotta be super careful about that, even when you're someone as tanky as a Tiny.
Pretty much. For complexity right now, I think what you want to do is pressure this Tiny as much as possible. Ideally, you draw support down here, because if you draw support down here, you basically ensure that at least one other lane is getting alleviated, and Witch Doctor Viper versus any dual lane should be fairly okay.
Oh, Viper is gonna find the courier. 1 click and 2 clicks. Gets it. First blood being drawn here with the bottle on it as well.
That's rough.
coL, well, immediately plants a tree and eats it in frustration. That is a big deal, actually.
This is really important. I'm surprised this wasn't called out because Witch Doctor has been missing for a long time, and Elder Titan was actually sitting here between the top and the mid lane. So if Witch Doctor had rotated top, he should have seen it. So it feels like they should have been able to call this out, but, you know, Zefric potentially just finding that one right timing, and with Illusion Rune looking to just at least zone out coL as well. Again, I like this. It draws the Elder Titan already to this mid lane again. He tried to go top together with the Abaddon, but now he's drawn to this mid lane, and this is not even a favorable dual lane. Again, yeah, it helps the coL Tiny stabilize, but it doesn't win the lane necessarily, and this is pretty much what complexity wants.
It's really good at level 1. We saw him walk up towards the Viper, but now it's just not feasible anymore. Just with the Cask, with the Maledict, as well as 2 points up on Poison Attack going in. coL will be the recipient on that particular combination, and already down below half health, and well, 1 or 2 more takes of the Maledict will ensure that they'll stay like that for a while. And Febby, well, is trying to find something to do up top, but coL, same level as him, does have another crush in a second, but the Stomp comes out slightly beforehand. Can he? Can maybe slither on further, but doesn't have the vision up the high ground. Meanwhile, down bottom though, first blood being drawn. Moo does get brought down in the end with the extra couple of right clicks.
Yeah, it's somewhat to be expected, and it's really good that Immortals do this, you know, applying a pressure here, because for the same reason that they needed, or Complexity needed to apply pressure mid, right? You see that the other two lanes aren't going well. You have this dual lane, Bane, Luna, there's a lot of damage here, so you need to make sure that the supports rotate down here to help Moo, or at the very least that you dominate this lane. And yeah, they have indeed drawn the attention from the Witch Doctor, which now again hits Viper in a solo lane versus the Tiny, and now even Elder Titan.
Yep. An Avalanche into a bit of a Spirit Storm, didn't quite pull the trigger on that just yet. Fabby just announcing his presence to make sure that Limb has to play more defensively. That's all they're really looking for right now. Meanwhile, Dubu just continuing to fight up against Moo down bottom. All these lanes seem so volatile because there's kill potential in almost every lane apart from top, I guess. At least not really, not without the supports just showing up and being that more viable target. Meanwhile, mid though, well, speaking of kill potential, Witch Doctor coming from the back, Maledict, Cask, still available here, but doesn't actually throw it out, wants to hold on to the mana. They realize, hey, we did the math, we can get the kill without casting that particular spell. And QO, once again, dropping down. And this time actually dying and not just being forced out.
Yeah, good rotation from Zephyr here with that haste rune, and immediately walking down to the bottom lane as well. Making sure that he has his presence felt in both lanes. And it makes it difficult to respond, really, for Febby. Top lane. They find a root, this could be dangerous.
Could be indeed, but gotta find it, gotta press that root button, but doesn't find it.
Actually, the Lone Druid is only level 4 right now.
Oh wow,
all right.
Don't even have it, okay. Root gaming not quite online. Maybe next time.
Bottom lane. I don't think I've seen the Witch Doctor yet. They might go aggressive here on the Witch Doctor?
Well, Cass not gonna bounce back here, and one more time actually, with the Malik going at Duo. He's just gonna die here despite the Nightmare trying to dodge some of this out. Ooh, one last right click, not enough, and he's juking the trees. Even if there was mana, there was with the stick. Couldn't have gotten the vision for the extra Lucent Beam, so this bottom lane also going much better for Complexity than Immortals really
wants to go for the snipe here with the Spirit. I'm not sure he's going to get there on time. This is Moo with boots of speed.
He's absolutely fine.
And he's not going to get it. I gotta say, I believe Zefreak played it really well up here. I don't want to give him the praise just yet because I'm not 100% sure, but it looked like he was playing in the fog of war, and you know, Immortals have a ward down here. They felt really safe knowing, all right, there's just a Moo Beastmaster. Sure, we just can just kill him. But then out of the fog of war, Zephyr comes out and they turn around. So again, really good rotations
now, but he sees the Elder Titan coming. It's like the one downside of that hero, you don't necessarily always have the chance to land the Stomp. Now, Zephyr walking back up to the high ground, working together with Moo, but the Avalanche coming in from QO, turn this around with the extra manpower. They will be able to secure not one, but both of these kills. Immediately re-establishing control of this lane, so important. Now guess what? There's a siege creep here. With the Aquila going, they should be able to do a decent amount of damage. Unless that's being responded to Zephyr, trying to at least drag the creep wave around as much as he can.
Nice rotation here from Kyo, and finding the right angle as well. Coming from the angle, I don't really anticipate.
Might be in trouble, dude. He does have a DD rune, goes for the brain tip and stuff on the Nightmare though.
And the Saboteur is going to keep Kyle alive. Well, the thing is, Brain Sap has a longer cast range than Nightmare, so I'm not even sure if he was in range for the Nightmare, but at least they pressure this lane. This is good. In terms of CS, of course, the Abaddon is able to hold his own up against this sort of dual lane. I say dual lane even though Kyle hasn't really been trying to be as present in this lane at all. He's been mostly just focusing on actually stacking and pulling, making sure he can get a bit of experience as well, get a little bit of farm. Yep. And now he is sitting as a level 3 with Boots or with Venom, and they are looking to set up a kill down here. They don't really know that he's here, I believe. So this could potentially catch them off guard.
Yeah, depends on whether he rotate around from mid, because there's a rated ward here, but as it stands, it's still gonna go in and try to find something. They'll find the Luna. The Storm coming through, and now MP with the stick, with the Eclipse, trying to turn this around, doing good amount of damage, and Moo tanks most of it up. Kyle with another crush here. They finally do get the kill with the last stick of the Maledict. Zefreak will take that for himself, but what cost? Kyle trying to run away and keep it as a 1-for-1 trade, which would be alright, but now another Stomp. No way to juke that one out. Cure with a tree toss and an actual toss on from a hero. He'll use Dubu to secure that kill for himself. So now that trade, not that good anymore.
could have turned really badly with that Eclipse, but nice awareness from both Wu and coL to just hide in the tree lines, making sure to avoid as many of those Luna Lucent beams as possible, of course, and they do get that kill, a very important one. Yeah, they give away 2 kills, but this is very well worth it. Bottom lane, though, yeah.
Nightmare to stomp into Lucent Beams, couple of right clicks. Should be it here, despite the stick charges, but Limp making a rotation in. Looking for Dubu, and yeah, with the ultimate, with the poison attacks. He'll be able to get that kill, so another 1-for-1 trade, but as a support for an offlaner, you can argue, alright, your mid gets the kill, and Z-Freak actually taking over the actual mid lane, so some more experience for him closing in on at level 6. coL making the most out of a bad situation.
For sure. It was a very, very fluid motion. You have the mid lane and TP bottom, and to try and get a kill, what do? Immediately the support is in mid lane, trying to soak up as much experience and gold as possible. So for them, this rotation is already pretty worth it, and they could even look to pressure this bottom lane even further. Beastmaster rotating down here, they could look to potentially just pressure the tower even. And Luna just can't really stand in this lane by herself at least. And I say that even though, you know, they're smoking up now, trying to get a kill here.
Yeah, without Eclipse, without anything, but, well, they do have the Nightmare set up if they find somebody, but Complexity not to be caught out.
Also,
just
3
yet.
points in Corrosive Skin. I'm not sure this is an easy kill. He has Raindrops, Strength Treads, Bracer.
Mu is there, can only throw out the axes, Stomp to follow, will lock down Viper, but he hasn't taken any damage whatsoever. It's all gonna go, the cast starting to bounce through Dubu. Well, there's also an ultimate available to Deathward, but focused on Foro for the most part, now interrupted by QO. More and more heroes show up, but it is a 2-for-1 trade, just as QO secures yet another kill. 2 for 2 as they finally track down the Witch Doctor as well, and 4F not quite done yet, slowing down Mu, another toss. QO with a triple kill, and well, you were talking about him on melee heroes. He's just making the best use of the Tiny that's possible.
I believe coL didn't have a TP in that all of that engagement. If he does, that totally changes the dynamic of the fight. If they just have one more disable in that engagement, probably able to turn it around or at least take one more kill with them. But as it stands, they were only able to get both supports. Maybe get another support up here. Nah,
Radiant's top
can't
tower
commit to
is
this.
under
I
attack.
don't know with Dubu also showing up, but I guess the flip side is, I mean, Viper is still doing alright despite that death, and if you look at the net worth chart, Chesty's actually claiming the top slot here, sitting at 5k, already has the Midas going to help him out alongside that, so is that the plan for Complexity? Just create chaos, do whatever it takes to just buy time for that Radiance to come online?
Essentially, but if you're Complexity, you can't just, you know, throw your bodies at the opponents either. Those heroes are quite strong, and they can deal with the lone druid, even a farmed one. So, especially the Viper cannot just fall off, and it's important for Limp to keep on farming and to, you know, at least trade somewhat efficiently. He is 2-1-2, so he has been involved in more kills than he's really given away.
And they've got to find another one, MP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just farming up. Even the Death Ward committed, just for good measure. Just make sure that there's no crazy save potential from a sneak Abaddon, but he's still up top.
Bit disappointed by Immortals' sort of lack of awareness here. They don't have a protective word for this Luna at all. Not anymore.
Scoop on the
Anyway.
bear, actually, that'll be cancelled. That's a big ultimate on cooldown for him if he still wants it. And should be able to get it unless there's another Savage Roll. It's still on cooldown. So hey, 300 gold for Dubu as he brain steps that down. For the ultimate now is looking for coL. Stick charges. Alright, he's still safe. There's the roots, but the instant dispel with the Euphoric Shield. Tricking him safe, especially with Nightmare. Preventing any sort of follow-up, so Abaddon really pushing the limits of this hero.
Oh, coL getting caught out by the Tiny, still survives with the 1 charges, but shouldn't be able to against the Abaddon.
Missing here. Oh, the push, the death. You recast your Euphoric Shields, I believe that makes it explode, right?
Yes.
So it does get the kill with that. It's
Come on,
sick.
nobody likes listening to you.
What?
The Abaddon, he was just like talking after he got the kill.
Oh yeah, like
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
but yeah,
Talking
this
fella.
is
Radiant structures
Complexity
are
making the best out of this, immediately rotating to mid lane, getting that tower. They already got a tower bottom. And Immortals sort of giving away these towers for free, effectively. Yeah, they're getting on top, which is, I guess, somewhat of a
Radiant's
trade.
middle tower has
But
fallen.
I believe you should have been able to contest this, or at the very least, you know, set up the wards. So if that Luna doesn't die bottom, I'm not sure they can actually get this tower for free.
Radiant's bottom tower is
So
under
maybe
attack.
Immortals just giving up too much
Dire's
map
top
control
tower has fallen.
without really any reason. And yeah, Complexity already making the best of it with the smoke gank, but unfortunately for them, Dubu does dispel the smoke.
Do plop down the ward, and Dubu might have actually
I mean,
seen
it's
that
pretty
place
obvious
now.
when you see
Yeah.
a Slaughter just sprinting down, you know, down your down your jungle. I wonder what he's been doing here.
I mean, he does have a sentry, but didn't immediately plop it down himself,
Alright.
so maybe he doesn't realize. Oh, this smoke up
Alright,
under
I
the wall,
guess he
so
didn't
never
see it.
mind.
I guess he didn't see it.
Yeah, maybe he just figured, oh, right, smoke broke. That's probably why he turned around, but...
I feel like he should have... Oh. Either way, yeah, this is just pretty good for complexity. Top lane, Luna's hiding in the tree line. Can they set up something for Chessie? They definitely want to rotate to him. Now the question is, how is Chessie? Yeah. Alright.
It's like, alright, they're smoked up. Probably not going mid since we're not showing anybody there. I'm the only one who they see, so hey. Better hide on the tier 2. Is that gonna be enough, is the question. QO,
Oh,
he's
not
actually
here.
in this, not just smoked up. Now with the spirit on top, stomp, extra bit of damage here. The Fiend Script, Limp makes a rotation in, trying to turn this around. It does do a decent amount of damage here. They will find Tiny, but Limp also dropping lower and lower. The Eclipse finally being used as well. The cast and the Death Ward here to try and turn this around, continuing to bounce, and an absolute slugfest here. The rest of Complexity, they lose their course, but they clean up 4 heroes.
What a huge turnaround here with the right timing coming out from Z-Freak. And this is...
Yeah, he's the real carry in this relationship.
I mean, he always has been, right? He always has those moments on those support heroes where he just shines, and suddenly he ends up with like a triple kill or something. So with a Witch Doctor, of course, very primed to actually take even more kills in this game. But overall, the entire rotation and just general awareness of complexity in this gank was really spot on. Of course, they did see the smoke, so it was somewhat easy. But at the same time, knowing when to rotate and also knowing to rotate the Viper first. The Viper, the tankier hero, making sure that he survives as long as possible to just allow the rotation from the rest to happen. Speaking of rotation, QO finds Mu. Not a kill, though.
Well, Raw comes through just to keep him away, but status resistance, alright. Doesn't even last all that
The
long.
raindrops.
And
Value pickup. Everybody
Absolutely.
on Complexity's side should really have some. Unless your inventory is already full, you should just pick them up against the Tiny and the Luna. Just such a value pickup, really.
All 3 of them have it. coL, Chessie, as well as Mu. Yeah, I mean... I forgot what I was gonna say. Just move on. Nothing I'd be done.
Couldn't have been that important.
Nothing I ever say is important. So
Oh,
that's
come
it.
on. Don't do yourself like that. Alright, Z-Freak building incredibly tanky. He doesn't have raindrops, but he has Treads, Urn, a Vitality Booster, Magic Wand.
Yeah, this guy's farm. So freaking fun. And that comes at a cost, though. I mean, Slaughter, coL, he's running the 5th position in Slaughter, essentially, right? Which is not all that common. Normally, he is that hero is the one that's roaming around the 4th position, that's trying to crush people up and farm towards a Blink Dagger, but he's quite far away from that, so you're missing out on this particular type of initiation.
Yeah, but, you know, Complexity has done this numerous times, not only with the Slaughter, with a couple of other heroes as well. Earthshaker, to name, Earthshaker. Once there was a Sand King. You know, these kind of heroes that still do a lot, even without a Blink Dagger. Dire Scan. Oh, they know that the Tiny's here. Did they see him pick up the... No, he has a
Shadow Blade. Yeah, they. That was one of the reasons why Chessie actually got caught out in the first place, I believe, because that up top was the Shadow Blade reveal.
Yeah, of course.
I want to say so. Yeah, that was also what I forgot to say earlier.
Who is the one invis though?
Yeah.
Witch Doctor's not an easy target to kill for QO.
QO.
He might be overestimating his own.
He reveals himself here, but yeah, invis rune expires. Could have been very dangerous, especially with QO having no support whatsoever in the top lane. It's rotating in now. With all of these walls from the Radiant side, it's actually a pretty decent place to fight if they can get closer. Gonna be ready to dive the towers, Mu. But the Raw available doesn't necessarily want to use it near battle. But, well, more rotations, Limp. Another TP in from Slaughter. The Stomp will only catch one. The Nightmare. Axes. Just trying to catch up here. Alright, that's actually pretty significant. Working with the bar time immediately, but now QO, that's a big hitter coming through to instantly kill the Slaughter, but now it's there. Fiend Script, Death Ward in return. The Stomp will cancel it. And now the Eclipse finally comes through on top of the right clicks from MP, starting to burn through Complexity, but Limp still very much alive and kicking. He does have what's it called? Dota of Defiance here to make sure that he survives that onslaught. And the fallout is 3 for 1. Very much in favor of Complexity, especially since Tiny died in the middle of that as well. It's so important for QO to be the one to just get the kills and survive to tell the tale.
And Chessie wasn't even part of that fight, so it was a 4v5. Chessie was pushing the tier 2 bottom, getting that one as well.
Yeah.
Complexity just itemizing very correctly. You know, they just realized, all right, most of the damage right now coming out from the Radiant side is just magical. They don't really have that big physical hitter just yet, so if we just itemize correctly, you know, Limb, as you pointed out, with the hood, and just tanking up in stats, they make sure that they can survive the initial onslaught, and suddenly they are able to turn around those fights. Yeah, they lose coL, but this, as we pointed out, is just a 5-position support.
Yeah.
And they wasted so many spells, not only on him, but also just in general on heroes that are just way too tanky.
Yeah, I mean,
the Earth Splitter not connecting, or only connecting on a Limb.
Yeah. He also got Fiend Script, so he tanked so many of these spells, and as you just said, he barely broke a sweat. Like, did he drop below half health points?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Even if he did, it's really difficult to actually finish him off. He's just such a tanky hero, of course, naturally already, but also with the way he itemizes.
Might try again. Alright, toss back perhaps. There it is, towards the tower. Extra bit of right clicks on that, but a death ward once again. Cure just immediately dies. An ultimate will be triggered now. Borrowed time that might secure the kill onto move, but maybe not with all these lows coming through. 2 heroes already down. The break. The Euphoric Shield is immediately cancelled. And coL coming in with the finishing touches at the back, and now it's a 5-man push all of a sudden. Chessie with a freshly completed Radiance and a big old strong bear. They'll be able to clean through now the tower in no time, and they can go high ground, right? I mean,
either that or even just fall back to Ro2 if they run and play it really safe. But
why not go high ground right now? I mean, Tiny is down, no buyback. They don't know that, but it's not coming out. Abaddon does have one, but what's he really going to do? Yeah,
even if he did come back, what's he going to do?
There's no clips, there's no Earth Splitter, there's no nothing. And with the Lone Druid, you have so much building damage, even 20 minutes into the game. Stomp will delay this somewhat, but it will still secure at least these melee barracks, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see them say, alright, that's all we wanted, let's get the hell out of here. Cure though, finds a bit of a combo to coL, but not the full one. The Saboteur brings it back, the Cass even punching between him in the catapult. Not sure what that is doing there.
Fiend Script onto coL, but well, that's a consolation prize, I suppose. Complexity not even going to turn around. They're not even going to look. You know, just have him. Take him. It's fine.
It's Christmas time, you know. Gotta leave some sort of present behind. But again, like Kyle's the only one that's really dying here in these last couple of engagements, and sure, it's still technically the latest Blink Dagger, but with all these buildings going down, he's still sitting at 2k net worth. It's only a couple hundred gold away from that, even as that 5 position.
And that's why, you know, one of the reasons why Complexity can play these heroes on the 5 position, you know, these heroes that technically need the Blink Dagger, need the mobility items, is because when they do play this aggressively, and they tend to do that, especially in the early game, you know, making sure to take at least 1 to 3 towers in the first 20 minutes, that just allows them, the hero, to just pick up a Blink Dagger at some point anyway, rather quickly as well. And, you know, now we see it, or we look at the Slaughter, and he is very close to that Blink Dagger despite dying all the time. Yeah. And that's just because they keep taking towers and just gives them so much gold.
Yeah, I mean, the only other tier tower left is the tier 2 mid. And it's not often that we see these kind of strats coming out anymore. I mean, it's generally a hallmark of like Pugna's push strats or Drow strats, right? Where you provide this much early objective pressure. But of course, Lone Druid also worked like that if you gave them the opportunity, and that's what Immortals did this game. Yeah,
in all fairness, yeah, of course, Complexity's lineup does have a lot of push power, but of course, the amount of towers taken also comes down to just being able to win those fights, right? Yeah. If they don't win those fights, they don't take nearly as many towers as they have done in this game. So this really just comes back to being able to sustain those fights, and even taking those fights again. 4v5. They didn't need Chessie for that last engagement top, where he was just able to take down the tier 2 for free by himself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, any push strat is worthless if you just lose every team fight, if you just straight up die. So it's kind of a part of it, but for now, Immortals still trying to find a way to engage outside their own base.
With that DD rune.
I don't know if that's possible.
They have been blessed.
Could easily just go for Roshan, but they also want to shoo Immortals away from the pit, because there's still pretty decent fighting there. I mean, QO, potential to land to come with a couple of heroes. You of course have to Stomp the Earth Splitter on a choke point, not to mention the Eclipse up to level 2 now at least, so you have these extra beams coming out. Yeah, Complexity today is still respecting that power.
Yeah, as they should. If you listen, I'm not sure if you listened to it, but coL was casting at the summit, and he did say, of course, you know, that his team has some of the, not necessarily biggest throws, but some of the biggest or they've been part of some of the biggest comebacks. Let's just put a positive spin on it, right?
All right.
And as far as they're ahead, like we mentioned,
it is. Ultimate there onto Q. Okay, there. Double crush as Blink Dagger is revealed. Q just immediately dies. The Stomp only delaying the inevitable. Now the Phoenix again on the Viper. He's not taking any damage from that. Now Death Ward, another crush. Top of the corrosive phase. Fabi Blink Bash. Alright, because why not? Just insult injury. It really is.
100%, or I'll call it as well. But MP wasn't even part of that equation, and even if it had been, would it have made a difference? I doubt it. I really, really doubt it. They just didn't have enough damage. They were just overrun, really, by this amount of damage coming out from Complexity. But at the same time, this isn't necessarily much of... Well, I do think this is part of a draft issue as well, but at the same time, Complexity just itemized really well. And they played the laning stage really well. You know, again, applying pressure in that mid lane, forcing Fabi to be there, and... Yeah, Complexity sort of sacked the offlane, but then they rotated it offlane later on as well, making sure to get the trades there as well. Sort of like saving and saving Mu and saving that lane, and at the end they come out on top and, you know, sort of like dominating this entire game.
Absolutely. I mean, just look at Siegfried, right? 9, 2, and 11. How often do you see this kind of scoreline on a Witch Doctor support? I mean, he's been all over the place, all over the map, really, constantly finding these right turnaround ganks, not just initiations, but also, like, especially in the top, where they were running down Chessie with just dropping everything on him, but then still being caught by the cask and the Death Ward and everything. So it's, it really showed that that was one of the linchpins here for Complexity. Everyone else also fell in and did their job. Like, Limp always in the right place, always rotating when he needed to. And Chessie, well, he didn't even have to really do anything this game. He just basically farmed, and then clicked some buildings in the end.
Much. Yeah. I will say, you know, and just to talk about the draft from Immortals, because of course that is something worth talking about, because if you lose a game like that, yeah, you can be outplayed, but it does come also back to the draft. And in that game, you could see 3-4 times Siegfried gets an ultimate off and pretty much channels it entirely through.
Yeah.
It is because the way Immortals have to take the fights is by initiating with QO and then following out with some sort of like Stomp or Earth Splitter, right? In order to take on those big targets. And then suddenly they don't have any disables anymore against the Z-Freak, the Witch Doctor. So Z-Freak literally just standing in front of the ET. ET can't do anything against that. And he just pulls or, you know, channels his ultimate through. And that is sort of, again, I wish one of their heroes had been some hero that had more spammable spells. Not necessarily disabled, but just stuff to throw at Complexity, sort of chip away at them when they're pushing, and just potentially just, in general, more burst damage as well. And I feel like this Luna was also very exploitable because, you know, Luna Tiny together, who does what in the early game? They kind of have to rely on the Tiny to do stuff, but his damage output is pure magic at that stage.
And he did do stuff. He tried his best, but then he could never get out.
I think we only saw one good rotation from Kyo, though, right? That bottom rotation where when he comes from the backline.
Yeah, like he got a couple of kills early. Like, but then again, it was mostly on Slara because at that point already we were talking about it. Everyone else was so tanky or just so well positioned. But yeah, regardless, Immortals gonna have to fix some of these issues in game number 2 if they want to stay alive. Complexity, though, we were talking about it earlier. They still carry that momentum from yesterday, still looking extremely strong. And they're going to look to continue that in game number 2 as well, so we'll see what happens in just a few moments' time, so don't go too far away.